Why is dialogue so difficult to understand when you're watching movies and TV shows? You crank up the sound, you can't understand it. So you crank up the volume. You just keep cranking it up. You're straining to listen and understand exactly what they're saying, only to be absolutely blown out of your seat when an explosion or music or commercials come on. Why is there such a massive imbalance between the volume of the dialogue and the volume of everything else when the dialogue is what you really, really need to hear and you really need to understand? Well, this is a challenge with pretty much every TV out there. So today I'm going to be going over 3 things that you can do to try to make it better with your TV, settings that you can adjust that will increase the clarity of the dialogue. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into your TV settings and you're going to look for any of the settings under the audio section that allow you to make adjustments. Now, the number one thing to look for is for any sort of bass boost or bass enhancement or bass increase, anything. And you're going to want to disable it or turn it down, because what that bass does is it just muddies the sound and it makes that dialogue so much more difficult to understand. The next thing you're going to want to check for are different sound modes. Usually these are accessible from the TV remote. And it's things like movie or music or game or something like that. It's like presets where it's like a pre-configured equalization. And what you want to do is you want to cycle through those until you get to one where the dialogue is more clear and it sounds better to you. So this is based purely on taste, purely on preference. It's just what sounds best to you. So you're going to want to cycle through those and find the one that sounds the best for you. The next thing you're going to want to look for under audio settings is anything that is referencing dialogue. So dialogue boost, dialogue clear, clear dialogue, anything like that. You're going to want to enable it, or if it's like a slider bar or a number scale, you're going to want to increase it. What this is supposed to do is it's supposed to make that dialogue more of a presence in the soundtrack. So when you're watching movies or listening to TV shows, that dialogue is going to be kind of at the top of the list, so to speak. When it comes to all of the sounds that are being produced, that dialogue is going to be emphasized. That will hopefully make the dialogue a little more clear and a little easier to understand. Now, the last thing you're going to want to look for under the audio settings is anything to do with treble. You're going to want to increase this a little bit because treble, those are those higher frequencies. And so by giving those a little bit of a boost, the dialogue should come through a little clearer. So you're going to decrease on the bass side and boost a bit on the treble. Now, word of caution here, treble, the more you increase it, it can get a little harsh on the ears. So you're going to want to be careful with this one, because if you boost it too much, it's going to sound terrible. So just give it enough of a boost and just before it starts to get uncomfortable. And that way that dialogue should be coming through a little bit more clear. So the second step to increasing the clarity of the dialogue is to look for any kind of setting that is around dynamic compression or reduction of dynamic sounds or night viewing or anything like that. What this does is it compresses the sound. So as I talked about in the beginning, where you have the dialogue, it's down here, and so you boost the dialogue, you keep boosting the volume until it's up here where you can hear it. But the problem is the difference between sounds. So if you have the volume coming through right here and the loud explosions coming here, as you increase the volume, you're boosting both of those simultaneously. And so when you get the volume up where you want it, now the explosions are just way too much when they hit. And so the problem is that dynamic range between the sounds. So what dynamic compression does is it brings those two extremes closer together. So there's less of a difference between them. So that way you can boost the volume and you're hearing the dialogue. And as you boost the volume, you can hear the dialogue better and better. And then, okay, yep, now I can hear the dialogue. And then when those explosions happen, they only come in at this much more because that dynamic range has been compressed. And so that way you get a better balance between sounds and less of a difference in the volume of different sounds. This is also useful when it comes to commercials. A lot of times commercials will come through just blasting you out. Well, if you enable that dynamic range compression, and the setting is going to be named different depending on your TV. So you're going to look for something that has to do with range compression, dynamic reduction, anything like that. That's going to minimize that. And that's also going to be helpful when it comes to like commercials that just come through and just blast you. So it's going to make the volume of commercials more in line with the volume of everything else. And in this way, you can boost the volume so that you can hear the dialogue without blasting out your eardrums with all the other sounds. And the third way to increase the clarity of the dialogue is to add external speakers. TV speakers are notoriously awful. It's just a fact. There are no TVs out there that I am aware of that actually have good speakers. They're always either pointed at the ground or even worse, on the back of the TV, blasting against the wall. So best case scenario, you're just hearing a reflection of the speaker as it bounces off the back wall and then hitting your ears. So it's no wonder that dialogue is especially difficult to understand on TV speakers, because TV speakers are so terrible. Now, this third step does require extra investment. You do actually have to spend extra money to add extra speakers. And if you're looking for something that is just simple, easy, no nonsense, and you're not looking for massive surround sound, you're not looking for some theatrical experience, you just want to be able to hear the dialogue better, a simple soundbar will absolutely accomplish that, and it can do it without breaking the bank. I recently reviewed the Ultimea Poseidon M60. This soundbar at the time sold for around $130 at the time that I made the video. I'm not sure what it sells for now. I'll put a link to it in the description box so you can check it out. I was stunned by the sound quality from this $130 soundbar. So if you're looking to increase the clarity of the dialogue and actually increase the overall sound quality, you don't have to spend a ton of money. I literally $130 for this Ultimea soundbar, and it makes a world of difference. Actually, it's funny. I had that soundbar, the M60, and I gave it to my parents because they had been complaining about not being able to understand the dialogue on their TV. They have this massive, beautiful 85-inch TV. It's a fantastic picture. It's beautiful. Horrible, horrible sound. I'm like, I've got just the thing for you. I took that Ultimea Poseidon M60. I set it up at their TV. That was months ago. And literally to this day, anytime I talk to my dad, he's like, oh, thanks, son, for that sound bar. I can finally understand what people are saying on my TV. And it's true. The sound quality is so much better, and it's not that expensive, $130. Now, if you do want something that is even better sound quality and you are prepared to spend even more money, but still not a ton, I also reviewed the Ultimea Skywave X70, and that soundbar was incredible. It came with a subwoofer and 2 surround speakers. Obviously, the dialogue came through crystal clear, but also you got surround sound effects. You got those deep rumbling bass sounds. It was incredible. Now, it was a little bit more money. I want to say it was around $700. I can't remember exactly the price. I'll put a link to it in the description box if you want to check that out. So if you want to spend a little bit more money and get a even bigger step up from that Poseidon M60, then the Skywave X70 might be the ticket for you. So the bottom line is, when it comes to dialogue, TV speakers are terrible, but you can make some adjustments in the settings to make it a little bit better. And if you're willing to spend a little bit extra money, you can absolutely find a solution where the dialogue is going to come through crystal clear. Hopefully this was helpful, and thanks for watching.